We are back with a very different and new message from the debt clock people, and this one is very interesting indeed as we look at this national debt plugging away at $34 trillion plus. Yes, indeed. Look at that debt per taxpayer, the debt per citizen, all of these numbers in red compared to the numbers in green, and you can see that this really is and should be unsustainable. Sadly, though, folks, it is sustainable. It will continue to happen, well, until it doesn't, until people completely lose faith. That not only includes people around the world, but people in the United States. I know as for you and as for me, if you're watching this video, more than likely you hold some gold and silver. And so that's why this message I'm about to share with you likely will not happen to you, because you'll know of a way out as we explore. Indeed, so here's the message from the debt clock people. Fascinating indeed as we open this up and see the message before us here. It is a media capture. We're going to try to just handle this a little bit at a time. I'm going to show you the first part here, because this is what you may see on the headlines soon. For sure, you can kind of see this happening. Of course, for most of us, this kind of message, this media capture that we may see in our news, well, we would certainly be alarmed by it, but most people probably won't by the time this occurs. Imagine global news there as the news agency here. In other words, maybe even news will be consolidated, just as families will be urged to consolidate and share living spaces, even potentially in a little tiny house, like you see here in this image from this newscaster here, reporting the news that's been parroted to him live. This will come after the headline of the Federal Reserve raising interest rates all the way up to 17%. It was about 40 plus odd years ago, in the late 70s, when interest rates were that high. Volcker did that. And Paul Volcker, Federal Reserve Chair, we got up to very high into the 17s, or very high in interest rates for homes were very high into the late teens and early 20s. And then the Federal Reserve targets negative 3% gross domestic product growth for sustainable living goal. A living goal, as for a sustainable living goal. Yes, indeed. So negative 3% GDP. Can you imagine? It's insane. That's their target. It's talking about it's a controlled demolition of the economy, essentially what we're seeing there. I mean, but for most people, these numbers may not mean a whole lot. But when you translate this media capture, what does it tell us? Well, when we take a look down here, we can see, as we scroll down past, we do the super NI and the image to text translation. We're going to look at this message. We're going to try to pick apart this infographic a little bit more, but this is very new. We can see it's just a clown. The media clown there. We see a lot of that today, it seems like. And it's a PSYOP operation. We can see here. And of course, instead of the image of the tiny house, which, can you imagine? Families are urged to share living spaces in a tiny place like that. Imagine two families living in that. Imagine one person living in that. I can't even imagine that. Some people do it voluntarily. It's almost like they're programmed for it. And that's kind of where we're going. So even though this message may seem ridiculous, that's kind of where we're headed, it seems like. So you see here in this image here, but it shows it kind of distorted, not quite square in the frame. It has red background around this, as opposed to this being blue, being more soft cooling. Or is this as hot? We see that's exactly what's happening here. And it's a hut, essentially, like a little hut. Bartered for goods and materials, they'll say there. That's what's happening live. That's what it's going to be. Because interest rates are so high, good grief, you buy anything of any kind of substantial value, you'll be paying so much in interest, it's not going to be worth it. So you barter for goods and materials. What will be a part of that barter? Well, if you have gold and silver as well as other things, you'll be doing quite well. This whole image is distorted, though. Even the logo for the PSYOP, as you can see, it's kind of distorted, parabolically out in the sides. And the global is on fire there, as you can see behind there. And the clown is talking here with his middle finger up, by the way. Screw you, public. I'm giving the news. And that's the hidden message behind this. It's kind of crazy, interesting. But so we look at this barter for goods and materials in this live broadcast. Again, this even is distorted. Mud huts can sustain a family of 6. Yes, maybe they can in poverty in impoverished nations in Africa. But that's the kind of world we might live in if their goal is to proceed as planned, as we can see with the text here below. Deindustrialization is the goal, and poverty is also another goal, and they're proceeding as planned with this marketing strategy, this campaign. Yes, indeed. Wow, crazy. Now, the other aspect of this we see with this image text translation as being translated. We get that. That's pretty obvious here what's happening. But what I don't understand is super NI. What does NI stand for? Does anybody know? I'm scratching my head on that one, trying to figure out what that is. Some of these acronyms maybe be so obvious. I know in previous times where these things have showed up, people have given some really good educated guesses. But I can't think of what this super NI could it be. Super, I don't know. I just can't even begin to guess what that is. But obviously, it's some sort of entity that is making this image text translation, some sort of supercomputer, I guess. And you see behind it there is a kind of a light, almost looks like an angelic bird or something like that behind it there. So that's interesting. I'm not sure what the significance of that there. There you can see that it is signed Thomas X. And again, I think that's either a reference to Thomas Paine, Common Sense, and that's the author. And the X there is, marking it there. X is also what's on that bill, which we've not seen in a while on the Treasury note, the debt-free currency note that we've not seen on the captures for a while. But this is a very new little program here. Now, above the media, we see the broadcast antenna, which is going out all across the globe or to the influenced areas, the media capture there. And so that's that capture. But the translation, the super NI, just has me stumped. Not sure what that means. I don't know that it's necessarily that important. We know that it's related to image text translation. We know what's happening there. This is the real message that they're doing. They're telling each other that it is planned, and this is really what they want them to do, to live, where they're not, they're doing whatever they can to not affect the environment and to be impoverished even more. You have an impoverished people, you have a controlled people, and uneducated people, or you educate them and propagandize them, which is part of what this is, then we can see where that's going. Now, the other thing I will say here is you look at the background of this screen behind the individual who sort of is grayish in appearance in general, sort of a generic newscaster, somebody non-threatening and doesn't really pop out and surprise you, and no features that would lend you to one way or another. It's just kind of a numbing type of figure there with brown hair. And behind him here, you see a blue sky. Looks rather pleasant with it fading in the background, kind of like you just, there, blue sky. This is a pleasant broadcast of view. And amidst of these visuals, with that background especially, and everything is straight and even with the imagery and the text and everything like that. So it makes it palpable, it makes it digestible. Whereas here, in this situation, everything is much darker. And you can see here that the darkness begins at the left and moves to the right, almost like sound waves emitting, or a pool where a stone is dropped in and it extends out to the edge. And that's kind of what's happening, it seems like, with globalism and the idea of what's going on in the World Economic Forum, even though the World Economic Forum is just that. Nonetheless, it has great influence. There's a lot of powerful people there meeting, essentially out in the open. It's like a public version of Bilderberg Group or something to that effect. Everything is out in the open. They're saying it. It's like they don't care to even hide it anymore. And I think that's really what's behind all of this. And you see the darkness that emits from this side. And it's coming from which side? It's coming from the left. I think that's telling too. I don't know if the debt clock people meant for that to be, but that's how I interpret it. again, I can't tell you how much I would love to pick the brain of the people who come up with this, the people at the debt clock, to really see and what they mean in some of these messages. I think it's quite intriguing for sure. But so that's where it is. Let me know what your thoughts are about this video and about the messages herein. I have a whole playlist of these if you're interested in checking them out. I've been doing them almost since the beginning. Thanks to sign up for letting me know about these. So I've been capturing even the ones in the past. And for the future, I'm going to try to capture them as I see them. But there will be times where I won't be able to get them, in the week. So I'm going to have to go back and get them. But I will hopefully catch up with them. It does take a lot of work to kind of do these videos. So I appreciate all of you for taking the time to watch them. As far as I know, I'm the only channel that is capturing these and by en masse in all of them and doing commentary of them. So I want to extend the multitude of gratitude to all of you for watching and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.